Well, I'd like to start by thanking you all and thanking Shay and the folks at ICMA for so warmly welcoming Nora, who's here with myself, my associate, myself, into this great organization. It's been great so far. And we're excited to be part of this new theme, expanding beyond classifieds. I think that online dating has a really rich past and a real good connection into classifieds. So hopefully you'll enjoy this piece here. Before we start, obviously, this is mature content, right? It's a great way to start the day after a free night off. If you have to be 18 or over to actually enjoy this session. If you can click here, it's fine. Just break the ice. So into my agenda here, I spoke with Shay initially about coming out here. We talked about doing a case study. And interestingly, I started putting together data about how we work and to really express and show to the folks here how we make money and how you can make more money with us. And as I was doing the research, I started to try and draw a stronger parallel between classifieds and online dating. And really, we have a very rich history together. It's very closely tied. The businesses are very closely tied. And what struck me is that the classified business is a very innovative business. And it's given birth to a lot of innovations, and I think I'll make light of a few of those for you as we go along. Things like home shopping, I think, has been quite driven by the classified business. And even until, so I was flying out here, and I bought this magazine over here. I don't know if you read The Atlantic. I bought it because it has Elon Musk. You know Elon Musk, founder of PayPal. So I wanted to read about it. And it says, what are the 50 top innovations since the invention of the wheel? And I thought, to myself, I hadn't read it yet, but I thought of a few, and I thought to myself, what would that be? Anyone take a guess at what you think the number one innovation is? From 50 going down, the number one innovation, and I think it's Tim over there. Electricity, it's a good one, but it's not that. You have the internet, penicillin, and this is a panel of judges. Any other guesses? The wheel. Yeah. But no, it's since the wheel. Heinz, come on. Felix. So, pasteurization, all those, the actual number one innovation is Viagra. No, the number one innovation is actually the printing press. And the reason I think that is, and the reason why they say it is, because it involves human communication and it provides a way for people to communicate and create, basically continue legacies, pass on information, and continue bringing information forward. Now, classifieds actually has this way of allowing human interactions to happen in an interesting way, and I think a lot of that breeds a lot of innovation. So we'll just go through a little bit of background, case study, and then maybe some forward-looking statements, ways that you can make more from our business. Very quickly, Avid Life Media is the owner of such notorious brands as Ashley Madison. Cougar Life's another one of our big brands. Ashley Madison was established in 2001, but Avid Life Media was formed as a company to bring together a bunch of dating brands in 2007. We're headquartered in Toronto, but we have people all around the world. We're in all those countries, all those pretty flags. 31 countries, just I guess that's changed in the last 3 weeks. 6 different 11 languages, 6 different brands. And yes, over 90 million revenues, close to 75% of that comes from Ashley Madison on its own. Yes, obviously there's a big business to be made, and I think a lot of you folks understand that as well. So just really quickly, getting into the building blocks of a dating business. The dating business is quite simple. Generally there's 3 core tenets of the building blocks. One is you need to generate traffic, and lots of different sites have different ways of generating traffic. Plenty of Fish does it mainly with an SEO strategy. That's the way they've always done it. We do it with primarily a very strong PR program. In most of those countries, roughly 20 different PR firms are working for us right now on different campaigns to draw this organic traffic in. We buy affiliate traffic, we buy lots of different types of traffic, but ultimately that's our core generation of traffic mentality. Secondly, you need to have some kind of matching algorithm. Most sites have some way of matching. Most technologies have some way of matching. You put in a profile, you match. And then, of course, you have an ability to communicate, send messages back and forth, and transact. And that's the way the businesses run. Today, on all those brands, we spend somewhere around $10 million annually on classifieds alone. So that doesn't include Google. Obviously, Google is our biggest classified means, people, in a sense. I think Google is the mega classified in a sense. But ultimately, this is on offline and online classifieds. Places like Backpages through our affiliates, or Viva Street, or some of the other big channels that we're buying on internationally. So it's an extremely important channel for us, and it's actually very strategic. When we enter into a market, we're always looking for that core or that key partner that we can work with in that market. And yes, we're a buyer, so have a big appetite to spend there. So just going back into the history of it all, I wanted to just talk about the very first dating system. The very first dating system, the year was 1780, and this is an actual excerpt from is a classified from a newspaper in New York. Was it Boston? Yes, in New York. And this is your first profile, your first dating profile. And it was actually placed in a classified section in a newspaper. So it goes to show you that without any actual innovation required, people themselves, back to that printing press and the human communication element, they were already starting to date and use this platform to actually classify. And I think it says here, refinement, desirous of, could appreciate a loving disposition, and luxuriant. That's home, by the way. And lack of money, no objection whatsoever, right? And this gentleman would put the ad in, and people would reply back to that mailbox. So again, those three tenets: how is traffic generated? The newspaper, the matching system was perusing ads, and women would place these ads as well. What's interesting about this is that the average age when I was studying this is also skewed older. So even till today, online dating tends to skew a little bit older. It skews over 30 years old, and that's primarily because people start to lose their social circles, the single social infrastructure, after university and after the first few years at school. People start to marry off and they couple off, and then there's folks who are left, whether it's through the divorce, but even back then it wasn't as common. There's folks who just didn't get married and they want to meet somebody. How do they do it? They place an ad. And of course, to transact and communicate, they would do it through mail, and they would subscribe to this newspaper. So just a real quick timeline. I'm not really going to, I don't think you'll learn much new here from this timeline, but what's interesting is how the dating world and the classified world really powered each other. So, leading up to the, the early 90s, we call it sort of the offline age. You had this concept of the ad, and then you also had that kind of was dormant for a while. It kept on going, and there was a bit of a counterculture in the 60s where people started doing this a lot more, and you started seeing a lot of different types of ads, male seeking male, female seeking female. It got a lot more liberal in a sense, and I think the newspapers started catching on to this potential revenue area. And you had this idea of a dedicated classified magazine, so more of those sort of local magazines. In the 80s, you also had a lot of telephone dating. Everyone familiar with those late night TV commercials, right? Those were kind of the birth of the adult dating kind of space. People would call in, they would leave a message inside of a mailbox, and other folks would call those mailboxes and just peruse through mailboxes and listen to messages. And if they thought someone had a nice voice, or if they had something interesting to say, they'd call them up, and they'd actually go back and forth. You have to subscribe to that system. Beyond that, into the 90s, you obviously had the internet, and the internet changed everything. The early dating systems on the internet were bulletin board systems and forums. Somebody would publish that there's a party going on. Someone would publish that they're actually looking and interested in meeting somebody, and folks would just start communicating. This is early chat. This communication is obviously key to this. And I think there was a real turning point over here, and that's when 1993, Match.com was started. And Match.com was the first, as we know it today, from my research, was the first online dating site. And what's interesting here is that it was actually a group called Electric Classifieds. Does anyone know who Electric Classifieds is? Anyone in the business that long? No, huh? So that's a classified business that started online dating. They started the business, and obviously Match.com, the internet made so much more sense because now you have the ability to build a technological algorithm. Right? So an algorithm lets you match people based on certain characteristics. I like skiing. Maybe if you like skiing, there's a match. I like women who are taller, or whatever it may be, blonde hair. You can kind of run it through this matching system, and it gave you this great way of selection, right? It gave you this great way of doing it. Still a lot to be said about those matching algorithms. Most people believe that there's nothing to them because there's something very interesting in seeing somebody eye to eye and that chemistry that happens in one moment. You can't do that with a computer, but people tend to try to do it. And in a lot of scenarios it works. Anyone here not know somebody who's met through online dating today? Anyone know somebody who's met? Married? Anyone met someone through online dating here? It's okay. It's still a bit of, it's okay. No? So a little bit later on, you had some interesting innovation in the classified business. 1995, you had eBay and Craigslist. So that was sort of the birth of the whole free concept, which is very disruptive, as you probably all know. I can't not mention in 2001, Ashley Madison was born, which is just a little plug for our own business. But also that was the birth of this kind of niche concept because we were looking at, interesting, just as background, Ashley Madison initially was set up, there was a precursor to it. It was a regular dating site. And our research showed that about 30% of the men who were actually on these sites were married. And obviously that demographic was more affluent. They were older, 35 plus. We knew they had credit cards. We could make more money. And there's a birth of niche sites at the time. There was JDate and Seek.com and all these different niche sites started coming along. It's a better way to make money when you actually focus. And I think a lot of folks here know that as well, right? If you focus on one very deep niche, you can really make a lot more money because you can charge a premium for bringing together that kind of social network or that network of people. So that was happening there. In 2003, Plenty of Fish launched, and that was highly disruptive to our industry. And that's, I think, thanks in large part to the innovation that happened in the classifieds business. So again, we have Craigslist and free classifieds was powering this concept of a free dating site. As you work through time, you also have Facebook, YouTube, 2004-05. Those are social networks. Facebook, by the way, is the largest dating site around. There's been all kinds of statistics that how many marriages are actually due to Facebook. There's actually some staggering statistics of how many divorces are caused on account of Facebook, which is interesting. Your old friend harmlessly reaches out to say, hi, I haven't seen you in 20 years, and before you know it, you're having a coffee and breaking up your marriage. So that's sort of Facebook, and again, that was driven by a lot of the actual innovation in classifieds as well. I think the social networks, things like eBay, powered a lot of the mentality in things like Facebook. 2006, Badoo is a very big dating site as well. That is the biggest freemium style site. So that again borrowed from the classifieds business. And today you have, I think where actually dating is really starting to lead right now is in a lot of mobile type technologies. Anyone here familiar with things like Tinder or Grindr? Right, these are actual mobile systems where you can actually find somebody locally. You can find someone in this local area. And it always worked out okay in the same-sex area because there's kind of a better understanding within that market. But it was always hard for women to actually let men know where they were. There's obviously the insecurity there. It's not as safe. But even now, with things like Tinder and social media, there's anonymity behind it. It blends it all together. It's mobile, it's social, and it has a freemium element as well. So that's what's sort of coming together. And as I was working through this, I thought to myself, well, it's quite interesting. I think that the classifieds business, had you really maintained or held on to that business from day one and integrated these types of technologies, you really could be owning this business. They should be really the benefactor or the custodian of online dating today. And in a sense, you still are. We were talking about here of a business that generates somewhere between $1.5 billion and $2 billion a year. So what part of that are you taking is the question. I think a lot of folks are starting to take a piece, and hopefully we can talk a little bit about how you can take more. For us, advertising and classifieds wasn't very realistic until this freemium model came together, because there was always this conflict between taking people away from the sites. You had subscribers who would come out and they would pay for a listing, and then all of a sudden you're taking them away with this ad and they're going somewhere else. It's not fair to me as a subscriber. I paid for that listing. But now that you're actually providing a listing for free, then it's a bit of a free, it's a free market now. I can actually put my listing up for free, and you're selling it in different ways. You're selling it with ads. I've got little sponsored listings that I can put on. So this really creates an opportunity for us, and that's where we've been spending more and more time and money in the area. Most of the classified sites that we work with have some form of freemium model. I'm sure most of you do as well. And of course, I don't have to really espouse the benefits of freemium. You have this ability to scale very quickly, especially in different regions. And as you scale, Google's always there to backfill any inventory that you haven't really sold. And even in some of the adult areas, I think in some of the adult-focused themes, Google won't let you monetize them, but in all the other areas, you can monetize quickly. So you have this beautiful way of working with the freemium model. And of course, I don't have to espouse this too much, but as I was going through, again, the research, I found this great case study, not in classifieds. It's in social media, but it is related. And this is really interesting. This is a comparison between two brands. Everyone familiar with Angie's List and Yelp, two very big companies? So Yelp provides free restaurant reviews, and Angie's List provides home improvement reviews. You have to be a subscriber to be on Angie's List. But anyone could just look through Yelp. And the real argument here is quality versus quantity. When you have people who are professionals putting in reviews about how to fix your home, the tendency is that you have a higher quality of content and you have better content for the actual visitor. And this will affect the overall experience and your ability to make money. But this is actually, this shows in sharp contrast the difference in a corporate valuation when you go to a free model and you start scaling how big the actual company can be. So there's a lot of worries right now that Angie's List itself will never be able to scale and it will never be able to grow the way it needs to. When you look at Yelp, in the last 2 years, it's almost doubled in size, about 117 million uniques monthly now. And they have a $2 ARPU. So if you have all those individuals coming in and they're making the money from these folks either via advertising or these freemium type models, you can make a lot more money, and that's why you have this huge difference in valuation. And not to say, obviously, I don't know deeply what all these markets, what these companies are doing. I think Yelp raised a couple $100 million as well. But it's a great example. It shows you that free is key. So I'm going to go on to a little bit of data now. I'm going to show you a little bit of our information. Just quickly before we go into it, our funnel, I'm sure everyone here runs sales organizations and marketing organizations. You understand there's sort of four key metrics for us. We're bringing in visitors. The key metric for us is a click-through rate if we're buying CPM or on a CPM basis, or if we're working with a partner on a CPM basis, we're trying to get more from a click. The second factor we work is our sign-up rate. So we're talking about free trials. The way our programs work, dating in general, is you get a free trial. We have lots of different, we call tours or paths that you can go in to see it. Some is like a little video, tells you what the system does. Generally, the way dating works is you get a free trial membership. You can go in, put your photo in, you can put your profile in, and you can start viewing profiles. But once you try to communicate, there's a fee to be paid. And that's that sort of sale rate, a paid member. That's what we're looking for. And it's not necessarily very fair. A lot of folks always sort of come to us and say it's not fair. Generally on our sites and in most dating sites, it's the men who actually pay. Sort of works in a lot of ways, but it works very well for females in the market. And then of course we work, I'm not going to sort of go into this in depth here, but we talk about retaining members, and that's obviously a big factor for us. Roughly 35% of our revenue comes from that first purchase. Around 65% of our revenue comes from retaining those users. They last somewhere between 3 to 6 months. So folks tend to come into an environment, use a little bit, harvest, find people, and then either marry up or get fix things up in their current relationship, find somebody else, whatever it may be. On the right side over there, I show basically our financial models when we're paying for this. So if you look at the bottom over there, it's about CPM. We buy ads on a CPM basis at times. And obviously, if you're selling on a CPM, there's a lower profit amount that you could make as a publisher. And it's somewhat of a set it and forget it mentality. If you're selling on a CPM basis, you're just basically putting the banner up. There's not as much of a stake in it for the actual vendor publisher. CPC is a model that was made very popular, obviously, by Google. You have more of a performance-based mentality. There's sort of a medium risk at this stage. You're sharing the risk back and forth. I can go through, got it. And then on a CPA basis, that's obviously the highest profit scenario for a publisher. It's our preferred way of working because it's more of a partnership. You can work together on building the best converting ads, and that way you kind of build an annuity in the product. So, a CPM is a kind of cash withdrawal method. A CPA is more like an ATM. You make an investment, and then from there you can always be withdrawing money out of this sort of account. So today we have our key situation over here I'm describing is a partner that we work with in about 12 different countries, 6 different languages, lots of different ad units. On the screen, obviously, it's in the online dating, personals, escorts, massage, all the adult categories. When we talk about CTR, we are generating hundreds of ads each month. There's such a huge amount of optimization that's required. And we target between 0.1 to 0.35% click-through rate. So out of 1,000, you get 1 to 3 clicks, basically. Interestingly, when we run ads, blondes tend to always convert better than all other ads. It's really interesting. Even though people tend to choose different hair colors once they're in the system, this seems to be the best clicker. I think it's just because it has the highest attraction amount. We talk about these in the classified space, the picture and text ads converts really well. It kind of mimics a real ad. So you're talking about that 0.35, even 0.4% click-through rates when you use this type of ad unit. And reality is always better. We talked reality being the truth being stranger than fiction. For us, the reality performs much better than fiction. In terms of landing pages, interestingly, we always tend to think that we use the one in the back is kind of a profile page. It'll work better than the branded page up front. For some reason, our branded page always works a lot better. It's generally because a trusted brand is what people are looking for, and brand always drives higher conversion. So our brand, which is everywhere worldwide, always converts a lot better no matter what kind of ad that we do use. And I think it's also because it's something different. You're in this classifieds area and you're looking at profile, and then all of a sudden you see something quite different. It actually makes you read it. You don't get that blindness. In terms of age, most of our clients are between 30 and 57 years old. Conversion almost doubles over 50. So that gives you an idea of how important data is to us. I'm not sure how much data is being harvested in the classified world, but obviously this should read that if you can target people older, then you can charge us for that ad. You can charge us more for that ad as well. Here's something interesting. In our world, is a massive influx of signups on Mondays and Tuesdays. So the weekend is over. I think folks are with their families or have another lonely weekend or whatever may be happening, and they go right on these sites and start. About 70% of our signups are Mondays and Tuesdays. On the classifieds, there's virtually no difference, which is interesting. I think it's something that they need to do every day, I guess, or something that they're searching for every day. So when clients actually tell you, I want to target an ad for Monday and Tuesday, you should let them know that really they should be testing it throughout the whole week. Mobile's been really interesting. The sign-up rates have increased significantly, obviously driven by the smartphone revolution. So roughly 60% of our sign-up rate now is through the mobile platform. It's a massive amount of growth, all mobile-driven. Last month, the number of actual sign-ups beat desktop for the first time, which is really impressive. But there's a challenge that we have. They don't convert as much. So we're getting slightly more sign-ups through mobile, but they're not converting quite as well. And this is the challenge with payment. People don't want to type in a bunch of different data into their mobile phone. And I think that's where there's actually an inflection point in the market. iOS users, consistent with site-wide statistics, generally use the system more, and they tend to spend more as well. So I'm going to wrap up quickly here. I think there's a real big opportunity, as I mentioned, $1.2 to $3 billion in actual online revenues each year. I think there's a big portion that you can take from that. $100 to $200 lifetime values. So if a publisher is thinking about doing a white label, trying to get involved in this business, you can make that amount from your users. And a big percentage of your users will sign up for daily, especially if you're in that adult space in some way. Mobile engagement is growing, and I think you're seeing that as well. And I think this is important too, 4 to 5 times more likely to purchase a second product from a brand they trust. Meaning that if they trust your brand and you have some form of dating product, they're going to trust it more and they're going to convert faster. And it's really important. Been all over the world. We've been launching everywhere. The Telegraph, dating, RSVP is a massive conglomerate publisher out of Australia. They all have white labels. Just about every country now, even at the TV partnership level, there's actually white labels going on. And I think it's a real good opportunity. So some of the visions going forward, I think for us, potentially, you can consider ad creation. How can you really help publishers create more ads and manage their ads, optimize their ads? This is something that really takes a lot of time. I think someone in the classified business, if you had these solutions, would be very useful. White labels, social classifieds is something that's very interesting in our world now. We're starting to buy more and more in the reviews of all the classifieds that we're buying. Mobile volumes are on the rise. We need help with somehow being able to actually convert those. And so I'm looking for innovation here. You guys are the innovators, so some things to think about. Video posts are obviously quite interesting. Dating and video dating is becoming quite important now as well. You're seeing a lot more of those sort of 5-second videos. I think that's something that could be helped with in the classified space. And who knows, maybe we flip it on its back at one point. You have free dating and classifieds start happening on the dating sites. So that's all I've got here. I wanted to open it back up, guys. I think I'm out of time.